Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can all of you hear me? Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wallazina jahadu fina lanahdiyannahum subulana wa inna Allaha lama'al muhsinin. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a human being out of two things. First is our jism, which is our physical body. And the second is our ruh, which is our spirit. And the way we understand these two things is that the ruh is the real insan, is the real human. And the jism is only a vehicle. Its body is a vehicle which carries our ruh. So the asl insan, the real human, is our ruh, is the spirit that is within us. And our body is very recent, that it came into existence whenever we were born through this process of gestation, 9 months. We came in this world. So it's quite recent. On the other hand, our ruh has been there for a very, very long time. Even before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world, this universe, before anything was created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created our ruh, the human arwah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered all the human arwah together, this assembly in a plane, and addressed all the human arwah together with a question which is mentioned in the Quran. Alastu bi rabbikum, that am I not your Lord? And all the human arwah, they replied and they said that qalu bala, that O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed you are our Lord. We testified to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this story that is mentioned in the Quran, this Yawm Alast, this again indicates that our ruh has been there for a very long time. And before it was just the ruh, and then for some number of years, X number of years, this ruh has been given a vehicle, which is our body. And that is this, our bodily existence in this world. Whether we live up to 40, 50, 60, or 100, this is a very short period of time when we look at the entire length, the entire existence of our ruh. The ruh has been, like we said, has been there for a very long time. And for this time that we're here in this world, this worldly existence, we have the ruh, but this ruh is now placed inside our body. And then interestingly, when a person will leave this world, we see that the ruh will leave. And the body stays as it is, but the ruh begins to come out. And that's why in the last stages, First the feet, they become numb, then the hands, then gradually the ruh comes out of an individual, and we say that this person has passed away. So the ruh has passed away. But the ruh, when it passes away, it doesn't die. The ruh continues to exist. Now, simply, it has moved into another state, and this state is called Alam-e Barzakh, which is the state in which it's going to live while inside the grave. So it still has some perception. And Wallahu Alam, what the exact details are, that's not relevant for us. But the ruh will still be there in the grave. And then when the day of Qiyamah will come, the same ruh, our ruh, will again be raised up. This time this will be a resurrection, both ruh and body, bodily resurrection as well. And then a person will either go to Jannah or otherwise, and there again the ruh will be there, and they'll live there with their body forever. So this ruh is who we are, and we've already had this ruh for a very, very long time. And now we're in this world. The real self of a real human which is within us is this ruh. And why is this important? To understand, one of the reasons why this is so important, that we understand that the ruh is so central, that the ruh is the core of who we are, is because sometimes on this path of spirituality, on this path of suluk, tazkiyah, tasawwuf, a person comes up with this question that, can you tell me something through which I can become spiritual? That I can feel spiritual? Or, is there anything which I can do? I want to get a spiritual experience. And what they really mean by that, if you unpack that question, it means that I'm living this life of bodily existence, this mundane, daily, everyday living that I have. And then I want somehow to be able to feel spiritual. I want to do something and come out of this and sort of become spiritual. And that could be, coming close to Allah, feeling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But, people ask this question. And actually, if you think about this, that when we realize and understand that the ruh is so central, that the ruh is who we are, and this jism is just a vehicle carrying our ruh, then the question actually should be posed in the opposite way. Because we are already spiritual beings. When the ruh is within us, then we are already spiritual. We don't need a spiritual experience to be able to feel spiritual, because at the very core, we are already spiritual. The ruh is within us. And yes, we are spiritual, but this bodily experience, this body that we have, and all the requirements of the body and the experiences of the body, they are perhaps maybe numbing that spiritual experience, that spirit which is within us. So understanding this fact is very important for our spirituality, because if you don't understand this, then you'll always be thinking that what can I do to become spiritual, without realizing the fact that we are already spiritual beings. That's who we are. And that's our asal insaniyat, that we are spiritual. And yes, this body is just an additional thing, which is going to be with us for the 70, 80 years. And then after this body will be gone. So asal insaniyat is our ruh. And while we are here in this world, the body is going to be with us. And we'll have the requirements of the body. But at the same time, we need to appreciate this fact that the ruh is who we are. And we already are spiritual within. And now, why is this important? Because now this will change our focus. For anyone who wants to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, one aspect is that you're trying to focus on the ruh. But when you understand and realize that the ruh is already there within you, that spirit is already there, that spirituality is already there within you. And then second thing you understand and realize is that the body is numbing my ruh. So now, in order to feel closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we need to do is to remove and limit, not remove, rather limit and restrict the bodily experience of our existence, the bodily requirements, the bodily experiences, this bodily world that we are living in. That is what we need to cut down. That is what we need to restrict and limit in our life. And if we can do that, then automatically that spirit which is within us, that spirituality which is within us, will be able to feel more of that. So it's not that we need to do some out of the ordinary, have some kind of a out of the ordinary, extraordinary spiritual experience by doing something very special. Rather, what we need to do is to work on the other aspect, which is our bodily existence, our bodily needs, our bodily requirements, and limit and restrict that. And this is really the tragedy of our times, that we have made the body the be all and end all. That vehicle, which was supposed to be only a vehicle. Imagine you're driving a car, so the person who's driving the car, that's the real person. And the car is just a means to just travel this journey. And if someone makes the car the be all and end all, and they're focusing on the car and the color, the texture, they're servicing the car day in and day, day and night, then the lost focus. We'll say that the lost focus about this core fact that the individual who is within the car, that's the real person. And that is the mistakes that we make, one of the mistakes that we make, that we are focusing too much on maximizing our bodily experiences. And if you look around us, the world that we live in, it's all about maximizing our bodily experiences. We go for shopping and we find, whether it's your sensory taste, the visual taste, or it's the taste, you have varieties of these different things, toothpaste and food varieties, and there's so many things which come in so many varieties, and it's all about body. It's all about experiencing this, having this bodily experiences in different ways, different tastes and different flavors, and different zaikas and different uh, you know different mixtures that are out there. It's all about the body. And whether it's visual entertainment, people are coming up every day. We're hearing about new technologies and new ways of experiencing the body. And now it's not just the body, it's even beyond that, it's like a visual, right? So uh, it's the visual experiences, it's the sensory experiences, the other senses that we have, tasting different things and interacting a lot with other people. And so it's all about the body. And this is unfortunate, because if you go back, the essence of this, the sunnah, the practices of the Prophet Sallallahu, one of the core teachings of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was that the Prophet Sallallahu, he brought focus on our heart. He targeted the hearts, the ruh of the individuals. The Sahaba Ikram, they would come to the Prophet Sallallahu, and the Prophet Sallallahu would give them fuel for their heart, would transform their focus, transform their thinking, their energy, their efforts away from the body and the experiences of the body, and move it towards their soul, towards their spirit, towards the ruh, towards ibadah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us already so many things within Islam which are built in, that we don't really, if there's a salah, fasting, zakah, the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala, zikr, making dua. These are things, the tilawat al-Quran. These are things which are already built in, that only, and if a person is just practicing a life of deen and just living a life according to the Quran, the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu, then it's not it's not that we need to increase anything in that particular domain. Rather, what is holding us back is the bodily, is that we're overemphasizing our bodies so much and the experience of the body so much. And that's the real problem. That's the real obstacle on this path. And that's, once we realize this, then the focus changes. That I need to perhaps now do something to cut down and limit and restrict this worldly reality, this bodily reality, this experiences of the body that are around me. And we have spoken about this and before as well. This is one of the reasons why our mashayikh, they give us a teaching that you limit your food, qillat ta'am, and you limit your speech, and you limit your speech and interaction with others, and you limit your sleep as well. Why? Because these are just aspects of your bodily experiences. Food, right? Food, limit, restrict that. And this is again ayn sunnah. We sometimes think that if I have three portions for my stomach, one for the food, one for the drink, one for the air, this is sunnah. But the Prophet ﷺ said that this is the limit. This is the upper limit. This is the upper limit, that you can't go beyond this. And sometimes we don't even start with this. The whole philosophy, if you find in our deen, is about limiting our bodily experiences so that the natural ruh, that spirituality that comes with the ruh, it can shine forth. That ruh which is there, we can focus, we can concentrate towards, that we can be attentive towards our ruh. And the entire world and the society that we're living in and the direction that we're moving in, it's all about the body. And it's moving us away from our ruh. And as a result, a person, their focus is transforming. So we need to come back and appreciate this aspect of our deen, which is that we reduce and limit our experiences, our interaction with the dunya. And this is all about reducing. It's not about eliminating the interaction. Why? Because don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you need to eliminate the dunya, start living. We can't do that. Why? Because la rahbaniyata fil Islam. There's no monasticism in our deen. So that's not what the goal is. That you just leave the dunya, finish the dunya for yourself. No, we need the dunya because again, why? The dunya is the vehicle. Dunya is our vehicle which will allow us to travel this journey of life. So we need this vehicle, we need the dunya. Yes, what we need to do is to appreciate that we have to limit our interactions with this dunya, limit our intake of the food, limit our speech and our interactions with others, limit our sleep, limit this interaction that we have with this dunya around us. So again, limiting our food, we find these are sunnah teachings that you fast. Why? Because fasting is training, it's disciplining us. Then you can curb that natural desire for food. And when you do that, then you will be able to feel that ruh. You're giving importance to your ruh. And this is the principle that the more a person, they are able to tame and discipline their body, and and automatically the ruh will begin to shine forth. So it's a choice that if a person's focus and concentration is all about the body and about interactions with the dunya and having these experiences of the body, then naturally a person will be numbing the ruh down. The ruh, their spirit, there will become numbed. It will perhaps even weaken, and it will become malnourished, spiritually dehydrated, spiritually malnourished. And on the other hand, if a person focuses on reducing their interactions with the dunya, they're limiting and restricting how much they want to interact with this world and all the things of the world. Things like we said, mundane things like sleep or speech or the food, reducing, keeping a watch on that, then automatically the ruh will begin to grow. The ruh, like we said, will develop, will nurture. This is what spiritual development is, that you're developing your ruh and you're pursuing this excellence. You're trying to attain ihsan, such that eventually you can reach that goal, which is a goal that is attainable for us. that goal which the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that you can attain, you should make that your target. And what is that target? Ihsan. And how did the Prophet ﷺ define ihsan? That an ta'budallaha ka'annaka tara, that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see Him. And that is not going to happen when we are giving into our bodily experiences. That will happen through our heart. We'll be able to experience Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll be able to worship Allah ta'ala as if we see Him only by tapping into our ruh, by 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 experiencing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our heart. And for that, the first step is to just limit and restrict this bodily this interaction with the dunya and these experiences of the body. So, once we understand this is a very core essential teaching of our deen. It applies to food, it applies to sleep. What's the philosophy? That you sleep less. Why? Because, and this is again the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ would wake up at night and sometimes would pray the tahajjud for half the night, for the whole night. And this is at the core of it. This is the reason that waking up at night and limiting this experience of the sleep, when a person does that, then the ruh, this is going to nourish the ruh. This is going to strengthen the ruh which is within us. Whether it's about limiting our interactions with others, speaking less. So one of the things, practically speaking, we have to make this effort. And only when we make this effort of limiting our interactions with the dunya, then we can become successful in the zikr of the heart as well, in our spirituality, which is there already, right? We don't need to do something extra and beyond and transcend ourselves and go for some spiritual high. There's no need for all of that. We just need to make this preliminary effort about ensuring that we restrict our interactions with the world, this bodily. We don't make this the body the be all and end all. And like we said, the mashayikh, they teach a few things here. That number one, we should try to practice silence, be silent. Why? Because again, the more you talk, and this is, by the way, not just silence in terms of the tongue, but also silence in terms of our mind, both from the tongue and the mind. Why the tongue? Because when you're speaking, again, you're speaking, you're concentrating on your speech, and as a result, that spirit, the ruh, person's attention, it goes away from the ruh. And it's all about the speech and the words now. And we see that the Prophet ﷺ, on the other hand, he would speak less. And this is the sunnah and something which we have seen in the lives of the ulama and the mashayikh of this ummah. And we've spoken about this multiple times before as well. All right, so speaking less, and also to be silent in terms of our mind. A lot of people, they think too much, and thinking again about the dunya, thinking not about the ruh, not trying to tap in, not thinking about the zikr of Allah, remembering the name of Allah in their heart, but thinking just about mundane things. Again, that's interaction, that's bodily experience, thinking non-stop. And sometimes, you won't be able to tell because they're silent, but still this processing is happening within. They're emotionless, apparently, outwardly, but their mind is in fifth gear, and their mind is scattered. It's what we call intishar. They don't have yaksui. They don't have oneness in their remembrance of Allah. Their mind is all over the place, scattered. It's like when you pick up a newspaper and you read so many scattered news from different sections, your mind gets scattered. And that is what our life has become. It's a scattered life. And with all of this advent of technologies, it's becoming even more scattered. That's why, I hesitate to use a lot of these technologies, because it's just increasing that scatter. It's just adding one more hijab in front of us. And let me just backtrack. Understand that when the Prophet ﷺ explained his ihsan, That's our goal. The goal is that we're supposed to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just pray to Allah ta'ala, but worship is all encompassing, that you live your life, you live your day in such a way, and that ta'budallaha ka'annaka tara, that as if you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is a target that the Prophet has given us, to live such a day, such a life, that we're able to feel that presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're able to almost see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are so focused, we're so attentive to that spirituality, to that taluk with Allah. We're so attentive to our heart. And with our heart, we are so attentive towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, because the akal cannot see Allah. And the Prophet is saying that you should worship Allah as if you see Him. So this is not some ugly activity, some intellectual activity. This is not going to happen through some rational analysis, some ugly analysis. No. This is a state, a condition which is beyond rationality. This is what is called spirituality. And this is going to happen through our qalb. It's not going to happen through our senses. It's not that you will be able to see Allah Ta'ala with your eyes. That's not how it's going to work. It's not going to happen even with your akal, that you can think, and at some point you can start seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your intellect, with your akal. It's not going to happen with your senses, nor it's going to happen with your akal. The way this is going to happen is through our qalb, through the spiritual heart, the heart of our ruh, the qalb, this word that comes over and over again in the Quran. This qalb is that faculty, that organ, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to every human being, through which they will be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if they see Him. They'll be able to feel, they'll be able to attain that perception that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at them, or they are looking at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the goal, that we're already supposed to reduce this vision and become silent in our mind, and try to connect with this heart, go deep within our heart to be able to attain ihsan. So what, now that that is the goal, we have made the goal difficult for us. Attaining the goal has become even more difficult for us, because now not only are we trying to we are not making this effort of tapping within and trying to work on our heart, but instead what we have done is that we have added another hijab, another layer over our heart, another layer over our vision. And that is this, the virtual reality, it's the social media, the virtual reality. People have their identities, their own social identity, this virtual identity that they have. And it's just putting another hijab in front of you. That we wanted to lift this hijab, right, this ordinary hijab, and try to go within and try to just close our eyes and bow our head and disconnect from this dunya, to be able to feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perceive that presence of Allah ta'ala with our heart. But now what we are doing instead is that we are putting another hijab in front of us, and that is this hijab of all of these addictions, of the interactions with the social world, the media, and this the TV, where sometimes you see a TV, and within a TV there is another TV. You see characters watching a TV, right? It's like a reality within a reality, a fake reality, and within that you're creating another fake reality, right? So putting a veil upon a veil. Allahu Akbar Kabira. And just I was having a discussion with a few boys yesterday at the university, and they were telling about this metaverse. 40, 50 years down the line, the world that we're going to live in would be something like, you will have these avatars, and you will be sitting at home, and you can send one of your avatar to work, and they will go to work and do the work for you, and they will go to the grocery and do the shopping for you, and they will go to university and study for you. You are sitting at home. You are sitting at your home, and these avatars are going out. And wallahu alam what will happen. People, I know if that's good or bad. People, sending their avatar to the masjid to pray salah. Ajib, ajib. And this is again, it's a totally different fake reality. It's another hijab that is coming in front of us, this whole concept of a metaverse. So this is very relevant for us that we understand that if we want to become spiritual, we are already spiritual. Yes, the bodily experiences and the interactions with our body and the interactions with the world around us, this is limiting. This is limiting. This is numbing our spirituality. And if we can cut down and restrict our bodily requirements and our interactions with the world, then we will already be spiritual. We can already feel that spirituality. We'll be able to develop spiritually much faster, much quicker, more effectively and efficiently, right? So this is the key. And some practical efforts then that we can make on this path so that we can be successful is, like we said, number one, practice silence so that this scatter goes away. Scatter in our speech, scatter in our focus, scatter in our thoughts, it goes away. We see so many, and it's not just silence in terms of our speech, but also silence in terms of our images that we're looking at. Cut down on the visual experience, right? We should simplify our life. Only when you simplify your life, then you can purify your life. The Prophet ﷺ lived a very simple life, a simple house, simplicity within the house, simple habits, simple food, simple clothing, simplicity in terms of interactions with other people. The Prophet ﷺ would meet people with a smile, simple, say assalamu alaikum. Simplicity, this is, a sifa, this is the sunnah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And again, simplicity helps a person. When you keep things simple, when you keep your world simple, when you keep the interaction with the dunya simple, then it's very easy for a person to become spiritual, because simplifying will help you to purify. You simplify, then you can purify. And once you can purify, then automatically you'll be able to intensify that spirituality which is within you. So, there's so much visual bombardment of images, whether it's again the billboards, the advertisements, the magazines, the cell phones now, these images are scattering your minds. And in computer language, we say that you need to defragmentation, right? Defrag the computer, get rid of all of these scattered files so that the computer can run faster. That's what we need to do, right? And this, like we said, that the cell phone and all things like the cell phones and the sisters of cell phone, right? The screen, right? This is like the ultimate tool of intishar, of, creating a scattered mind. Smartphone, that's like a computer in your pocket, right? And just the home screen has so many apps, right? It's scattered. We need silence. Yeah, I'm not saying, right, that you need to throw away the phone, because again, we need the body, we need some of those interactions with the body, because the body again is the vehicle, and we can't eliminate all of these things completely. So that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is we need to appreciate that we need to limit, we need to restrict, we need that silence with the dunya so that we can work on our spirituality. We have to get rid of that scatter. If you talk less, you will feel zikr-e-qalbi. People traditionally used to say that women talk a lot. Men also talk so much, right? They talk. And when you talk so much, it affects your heart. It affects the zikr of your heart. Initially, what happens is when you do zikr, you will get many thoughts, right? And those thoughts are coming because, again, because of the dunya, that scatter that we're already in. And it's just coming out that you're not trying to remember Allah Ta'ala. You're sitting, you're even trying to focus and concentrating, and still you're unable to think about Allah, to remember Allah exclusively. Why? Because there's already so much scatter within us that it's now all coming out. And that's actually it's a good thing, because it's telling us what the disease is. It's telling us that I am focusing, I'm overemphasizing the dunya, these interactions, these thoughts so much that they're coming within me, that they're within me. I need to do something to be able to bring them out and then keep them out. And that is what zikr kalbi murakaba is, that all of that filth and all of that scattered, it comes out. And the more and more a person keeps practicing zikr, that filth keeps coming out. And then it stays out. But at the same time, we also need to ensure that we don't get those filth within us. We don't get too many thoughts. And for that, we need to simplify. We need silence. We need to speak less. We need to eat less. Interact less. I'm not saying, cut down on your interactions and leave those necessary and beneficial interactions. Again, do the beneficial, the necessary interactions. But beyond that, the futile, the useless, the wasteful, cut down on those interactions. Cut down on such speech. Cut down on such sleep, right? People say that, when you're getting so many thoughts, you just need to ignore them. When you sit in an office and you tell your boss that I can't work because there are too many cars which are passing outside the window, right? You will get fired, right? They'll say, focus, right? Try to focus on the work that you're doing. Forget about the car. The same way in the beginning, when a person does zikr in the heart, you will get thoughts. You will get this intishar, this scatter, right? Your job is just to ignore. Just ignore that. Just like that guy who's sitting in the office, he ignores the traffic, focuses on the work. You just have to focus on the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will get better and better and better, right, at this. When you start avoiding unnecessary speech, unnecessary interactions, unnecessary sleep, unnecessary food, just cut down on all the futile and the useless activities, the interactions in the world. And then second thing is, again, reducing our screen time, because that's how it begins. Whether it's your smartphone, your iPhone, your laptop, your iPad, whatever, etc. Yes, you must do all the necessary and the productive and the beneficial things, but you have to stop yourself from the wasteful, the futile, the unnecessary. And you have to be extremely strict about this. Because if you click one story about the dolphin and read it for 30 seconds, the internet will get you, right? And will be stuck there for the next 30 minutes. And that will create even more scatter within you. So we just need to look at our browsing history sometimes. And we realize that how long we have been surfing. So we have to reduce the screen, leave the screen in some cases. Learn silence, number one, and leave the screen. Limit the screen. The more silent you are and the more screenless you are, the more you will be able to feel that spirituality. The more your ruh will be able to develop. You'll be able to spiritually develop. You will have a shot then at getting that ihsan. The more you will be able to get that zikr. And this is what our mashayikh, the ulama, our salaf salihin, all of them, you read their biographies, you read about their lives. They would practice these things. They would sometimes, they would often be quiet. Other Baqi Billah rahmatullah alayh, it was once a student said to Hazrat Baqi Billah rahmatullah alayh, that Sheikh, give us some advice so that we can benefit from your advice. And he said that, a person who cannot get benefit from my silence, They will not benefit from my words, right? The Prophet ﷺ used to sit after Fajr Salah and sometimes just be silent. In fact, we find this whole concept of khalwat, where the Prophet ﷺ would go to cave, the Mount Hira, seclude himself there, and worship and think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remember Allah. That's the whole philosophy here. That giving focus on, putting the focus on the ruh and the limiting and restricting this worldly experiences around you. The Prophet ﷺ, and you can see all four things there in that episode of the cave. That reducing food, how? Because it comes in a riwayah that the Prophet ﷺ would take food with him, and it was a very limited quantity, and then the Prophet ﷺ would stay in that cave for sometimes 2 days, 3 days, sometimes even for a week, and sometimes even beyond that. So we can imagine that the intake of the food would be very little, reduce, and whatever is necessary, right? Limiting the food to whatever is necessary. Second thing is that obviously when you're all there in that environment of khalwat and seclusion, what do? You are thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have any other people around you. So you don't speak less. In fact, you don't speak anything, right? And when you're silent, then your heart can begin to speak. Now you can focus, you don't need to focus on your speech, you're focusing on your heart. You're trying to say, you're trying to listen to your heart, as opposed to listening to your own speech and listening to other people say what they are saying. Now you are in that environment where you can develop the speech of your heart, and you're trying to listen to the heart, and more specifically listening to your heart. Make this zikr of the name of Allah Ta'ala as if your heart is saying Allah, Allah, Allah. That's what you're listening. And in fact, there is a verse of the Quran which tells us that everything, every shay is doing tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you may not be able to understand and comprehend that way they're making tasbih. So if everything is making tasbih of Allah ta'ala, our heart is also a thing. So our heart already, again, we don't need to force and jumpstart and, okay, you're trying to push and pull with the heart and making it scream Allah, Allah. The heart is already saying Allah, Allah, Allah. You simply make an intention that my heart is saying the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's already saying that. It started. That zikr of the heart is already started the moment you made that intention. This is the beauty of our deen, the beauty of intention, that you don't need to force it. You're not, wrestling with the heart, right? It's already simply with the act of intention. It's saying Allah, Allah. Now what you simply need to do is just sit and just concentrate, go deep, become very attentive, spiritually attentive, and just become attentive to your heart and try to listening to the zikr. And the more silence we have, the more we'll be able to listen, the more we'll be able to tap in. And eventually, if you keep practicing this, you will reach that moment of connect. You will attain that moment of connect, where you will feel, yes, my heart is saying Allah, Allah. So this was the second thing, right? Limiting your speech, limiting your interaction, because obviously, when you're silently in silence and solitude, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tapping within, then there are no people around you. And some of our mashayikh, they would actually make dua to Allah Ta'ala before sitting in Murakaba. That, oh Allah, I'm about to sit in the zikr to remember you. Oh Allah, please don't send anyone who will disturb me from my remembrance. Don't send anyone who will disturb and distract me and away from your remembrance. They would pray 2 rakat salat haja with this dua, and then they would sit and do Murakaba, because they understood that, they wanted to go deep. They wanted to be very deeply spiritually attentive towards their heart. And obviously, we can imagine that the Prophet ﷺ would sleep less as well, right? So we can see all four things are there in that sunnah model. And the Prophet ﷺ said that khalwat was made beloved for me. And this khalwat was the sunnah, and this is also the way of the siddiqeen, the salihin of this ummah. That for some portion of the time during the day, we try to create an environment within our homes where we practice that solitude, that silence, and we just try to disconnect from this dunya, disconnect from our bodily experiences, disconnect from this jism, this requirements of the jism, and just go to our asal insaniyat, tap into who we really are, tap into that ruh, and tap into the heart of that ruh. That's who we really are. That is our asal insan. That is that insan which is going to, even when this body goes away, when we pass away, that asal insan which is within us, that is going to continue. That ruh is going to persist. It's going to continue beyond our worldly existence. We focus on that ruh. We remember the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that ruh. In that ruh, we do the zikr of the heart. And this is going to nourish our ruh. This is going to further strengthen our ruh. The Prophet ﷺ, he would do tarbiyah of the Sahaba Ikram. Once the Sahaba Ikram were laughing a lot. So the Prophet ﷺ came and said that if you knew what I knew, you would laugh less and cry more. So I'm not saying that you become dry people, right? But you also need to be, we need to be serious about this aspect. That having too much of this dunyavi experiences and interactions, and this thinking about the worldly existence, the worldly part of our existence, that is detrimental for our spirituality. That is the point that we need to understand. And then now when we understand this, then we can start practicing the true zikr of the heart that we have mentioned before in our sessions. Practicing wukuf kalbi and practicing murakaba. These two things, wukuf kalbi is like the 24/7 zikr of the heart. You're always thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at some level, right? While engaged in different activities of the world. So you are engaged, you have the bodily experiences are there to some whatever level, and you're keeping it at the necessary level. But at the same time, you're also aware of the ruh which is within you, and the heart, the qalb which is within you. Part of your attention is also on your qalb, that your qalb is remembering Allah Ta'ala. You're thinking about Allah Ta'ala. You keep that awareness within you. It's like a background remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. That is wukuf qalbi. That should be there all the time, even when a person is engaged in the dunya. We cannot make ourselves such that we are completely divorcing our spirituality. We can't even do that for one moment. Because that is our ruh. We cannot become oblivious to our ruh, even for a fraction of a second. Right? This ruh is our asal. We need to keep that awareness within us. That I am tapping into my ruh and using my ruh to think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to think about Allah ta'ala throughout the day. And then the second is murakaba, which is our khalwat, which is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That we just now disconnect, empty ourselves. Even during wukuf kalbi, we are trying to stay away from the unnecessary. Whatever activity in the world we are doing, and to whatever level that activity requires our engagement, we engage the world at that level, but not beyond that. And we keep our other engagements with the heart, thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in murakaba, then we go all the way. We try to attain that state of fana, where we just empty ourselves of everything. All thoughts, all visions, all colors, all tastes, all experiences, empty ourselves of everything and just go within and tap into our heart, and then use our heart to think about Allah, to think about the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That my heart is saying Allah, 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 and I'm listening to the zikr. And the more we practice these two zikr, they reinforce one another. One is like let me give you another example. And One is like a sponge, and you submerge that into the water. One is sponge, and then you submerge that sponge, you submerge it inside the water. And the more you submerge it, the more you drown it in the water, the longer it will last when you take it out of the water. This is Murakaba, that you're submerging yourself within the water. You're submerging yourself in that solitude, in that khalwa, where you're just drowning yourself in the exclusive remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is Murakaba. And the longer you do that Murakaba, and the longer you remain in that state of Murakaba, when you come out, it will last longer, right? It will last longer. And you will carry that remembrance and those thoughts about Allah Ta'ala throughout the day. So this is the daily, Murakaba then is the daily exercise of fana. It's the daily exercise of fana. There should be some time of the day when you have to disconnect from this world and create that khalwa and go deep, go deeper. The deeper you go in the zikr, it's like submerging your sponge deeper and deeper in the water and keeping it there. Like the Prophet says, would do this at khalwat and then later on in tahajjud salah, right? In salah, in tahajjud, in sajda. All of that was submerging the sponge deeper in the water. And then wukuf kalbi. Wukuf kalbi is like spraying water. It's like spraying, like we have these spraying water bottles while ironing, we call this, right? So that's what wukuf kalbi is. That when you cannot completely submerge, then at those times, just keep spraying. Just keep spraying. So 24 hours a day, we should either be drowning or we should be spraying. Then you will become zakir. So this is what we need to do. Right? So this is what each one of us we need to do. We don't want you to leave your profession, leave your studies, leave your work, but we want that we should become zakireen. We should become people who are the muhsineen, people of ihsan. This is a goal that Allah Ta'ala has set for us, that you worship Allah as if you see Him. We want zakireen, we want muhsineen, we want muttaqeen, salihin, sadiqeen. And then after that, you can become doctor, you can become professional, you can add whatever label you want to after that. Zakireen doctor, zakireen professionals. You can add whatever label after that, but this is our identity. This is our asal insaniyat, our ruh. And we need to work on developing ourselves spiritually. Maybe sometimes you will say that my sponge has dried, become dry. So you might realize that I have to either spray more or maybe I have to submerge more. So you can only increase in either of these two things. Either go submerge yourself deeper, do it more and more and more throughout the day. If 20 minutes are not enough for submerging, go for 40 minutes. If 40 minutes are not enough, go for 1 hour. The more you submerge, the deeper you keep that in zikr, the deeper you keep yourself in zikr, then it will last longer, right? And then after that, once you develop a habit, then you can practice wukuf qalbi side along with that. So we need to increase in both of these things. The purpose of our life is that we live in such a way that you never forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you reach that point, all other things will become easy. Allah Ta'ala will take care of the dunya. Everything else will come in place. It will become easy to not become angry. It will become easy to lower your gaze. It will become easy to fall in love with Allah Ta'ala. It will become easy to pray your salah with feelings. It will become easy to recite Quran with feelings. The entire practice of deen will become spontaneous and easy and pleasurable. It is only difficult because we don't remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We forget Allah ta'ala. And We make dua that may Allah Ta'ala then accept us for this zikr. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of us amongst the zakireen and the muhsineen and the muttaqeen. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Before we make dua, we'll make a short silent zikr of the heart for some time. Close your eyes and bow your head. Disconnect yourself from everything else in this world and make a niyat that, Ya Allah, you have said in Quran, Fazkuruni azkurkum. That if you remember me, I will remember you. Ya Allah, I'm remembering you deep inside of my heart. And I ask you that you remember me by showering your rahmah upon my heart, by cleaning my heart of its filth, of its sins, and my heart in gratitude is calling upon your name, your Isme Azam, Isme Jalala, Allah, as if my heart is secretly, silently saying, Allah, Allah, Allah. Wow, here's Wala dil badal de. Wow, here's Wala dil badal de. मेरा गफलत में डूबा दिल बदल दे मेरा गफलत में डूबा दिल बदल दे बदल दे दिल की दुनिया दिल बदल दे खुदाया फजल फरमा दिल बदल दे सुनूं मैं नाम तेरा धड़कनों में सुनूं मैं नाम तेरा धड़कनों में मजा आ जाए मौला दिल बदल दे तेरा हो जाऊं इतनी आरज़ू है तेरा हो जाऊं इतनी आरज़ू है बस इतनी है तमन्ना दिल बदल दे बस इतनी है तमन्ना दिल बदल दे। मेरी फरियाद सुन ले मेरे मौला, मेरी फरियाद सुन ले मेरे मौला, बना ले अपना बंदा दिल बदल दे, बना ले अपना बंदा दिल बदल दे। हवा ओ हिर्स वाला दिल बदल दे, मेरा गफलत में डूबा दिल बदल दे। ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह। Make dua. Subhana rabbil al-wahhab. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. वग़फ़िर वरहम व अंत खैरुर राहिमीन। या अल्लाह या रब्बे करीम, हम आपके आजिज़ मिस्कीन से बनते हैं, हमारे गुनाहों को माफ़ फरमा, हमारी खताओं को दरगुजर फरमा, हमारे ऐबों की पर्दापोशी फरमा। या अल्लाह पाक, जब बच्चा परेशान होता है तो अपने माँ बाप की तरफ दौड़ता है, और जब बंदा परेशान होता है तो अपने रब की तरफ लौटता है। ये बेकसों के दस्तगीर, टूटे दिलों को तसल्ली देने वाले, खाली झोलियों को भर देने वाले। या अल्लाह, हमने भी झोलियां फैलाई हैं, अल्लाह अपनी रहमत से हमारी झोलियों को भर दीजिए। अल्लाह हमें अपनी मोहब्बत अता फरमा दीजिए, अपनी मारिफत अता फरमा दीजिए, हमारी तौबा को कबूल फरमा लीजिए, हमें तकवे का नूर अता फरमा दीजिए, हमें जिक्र का नूर अता फरमा दीजिए। अल्लाह हमें अपने मोहसिनीन बंदों में शामिल फरमा लीजिए, अल्लाह अपने मुत्तकीन बंदों में शामिल फरमा लीजिए, अल्लाह अपने मुहिब्बीन बंदों में शामिल फरमा लीजिए, अपने मुकर्रबीन बंदों में शामिल फरमा लीजिए। या अल्लाह, अपने इश्क की आतिश हमारे सीनों में पैदा फरमा दीजिए, हमारे अंग अंग से अपने जिक्र को जारी फरमा दीजिए, रुए रुए से अपने जिक्र को जारी फरमा दीजिए, हड्डी हड्डी से अपने जिक्र को जारी फरमा दीजिए, बोटी बोटी से अपने जिक्र को जारी फरमा दीजिए। या अल्लाह या रब्बे करीम, हमारी इन दुआओं को अपनी रहमतों से कबूल फरमा। या अल्लाह, हमने अपनी इस्तिताअत के मुताबिक आपसे मांगते हैं, अल्लाह आप अपनी शान करीमी और रहीमी के मुताबिक हमें अता फरमा दीजिए। अल्लाह, जो मांगते हैं अल्लाह उससे बेहतर अता फरमा दीजिए, उससे बढ़कर अता फरमा दीजिए। अल्लाह हमें अपनी रज़ा नसीब फरमा, अपनी लिक़ा नसीब फरमा, अपनी मुलाकात का शौक अता फरमा। अल्लाह हमें ज़िक्र क़ल्बी की नेमत अता फरमा। अल्लाह हमारे दिल को ऐसा ज़ाकिर कर दीजिए कि हम आपको भूलना चाहें भी तो भूल ना सके, भुलाना चाहें भी तो भुला ना सके। अल्लाह हमें ज़िक्र के अंदर रसूख अता फरमा, अल्लाह तकवा के अंदर रसूख अता फरमा। अल्लाह अपनी मोहब्बत के अंदर गहराई नसीब फरमा, शिद्दत अता फरमा, अपनी मोहब्बत में यकसुई अता फरमा। अल्लाह गैर की मोहब्बतों को हमारे दिलों से निकाल दीजिए, नफसानी, शैतानी, हैवानी मोहब्बतों को अल्लाह हमारे दिलों से निकाल दीजिए। या रब्बे करीम, हमारी इन दुआओं को अपनी रहमतों से कबूल फरमा। सल्लल्लाहु तआला अला हबीबिही खैर खल्किही मुहम्मदिन व अला आलिहि व सहबिही अजमाइन बिरहमतिका या अरहमर राहिमीन।